Hey everybody, Jeff Evely here out in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Well, the CPC, Cult of Child Sacrifice, just had its convention in Calgary, Alberta, where the Milhouse Messiah, Pierre Poilievre, completed his apotheosis into the Pandering One with 87.4% of the votes going to keep him on as leader, making him the first politician in Canadian history to go from leader of the opposition to a failed bid prime minister back to leader of the opposition. And he snagged more of the vote than Harper did and probably any other conservative leader in Canadian history. But that's not what has X ablaze right now. Everybody is talking about one vote in particular. So I wanted to provide you with a little bit of a backgrounder and some info on this one. Let's get right into it. This is the vote. It's the vote on the conversion therapy ban. That's the Bill C4 that imposes a 5-year jail sentence on any parent who doesn't want to give their child a sex change. And the motion here is to oppose that conversion therapy ban, to not put parents in jail. But, well, let's just get right into it here. Here is the vote.
We do not have a double majority achieved on this.
La proposition n'a pas obtenu.
So this is defeated.
So the motion is defeated because they don't have a double majority. Now, what is the motion? Here is a picture from Billboard Chris, and the underlined portion of this motion that's up on the screen says, "We believe the parents have the right to arrange for body-affirming talk therapy for their gender-confused child, and we oppose the federal conversion therapy ban, which criminalizes parents for doing so." So all of you guys who have been calling me a liar and saying, no, that's not what the bill does, here it is from the CPC themselves. The conversion therapy ban, unanimously consented by the House of Commons, imposes 5-year jail sentences on any parent who doesn't want to give their child a sex change. And this motion to oppose that law was defeated. And Billboard Chris is retweeting Kelsey Sheeran here, and he says, today, a simple resolution to allow kids to receive therapy to help them feel comfortable with their sex did not pass. Truly unbelievable. It needed a total vote majority and a majority of provinces and territories. The Conservative Party of Canada does not want kids with distress about their sex to receive the message that girls are girls and boys are boys, and they are beautiful just as they are. Well said, sir. And here is the result again. So they did get a majority of the votes, 51.85%, so just barely. The party is very divided on this. And they did not get a majority, the double majority they needed, because these top 5 provinces voted in favor of the motion to oppose this ban. And these bottom 5 provinces and territories voted for the status quo, which is that 5-year jail sentence for parents. PEI coming in at the bottom of the list with 27.2, but we also have New Brunswick coming in at the top of the list. So also in the Atlantic provinces, and they're at 67.57%. We got some work to do out here in my home province of Nova Scotia. Another 2.54% would have gotten it to 50% here in Nova Scotia. So we definitely have to work on that. And Saskatchewan is also right up there pretty close with about 2/3 voting to oppose 5-year jail sentence for parents trying to protect their kids from the trans-industrial complex. So here is the bill itself, Bill C4. This is the Royal Assented version. And I'm just going to scroll down here to the definitions. Conversion therapy. This is where it gets problematic because it says conversion therapy means a practice, treatment, or service designed to, and they have multiple criteria here. So the first one is any practice, treatment, or service designed to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual. So don't pray the gay away. We don't want to coerce gay kids to be heterosexual. I think everybody agrees on that. But it's lacking the word coerce, which I think is appropriate here, because that is fundamentally what the law is for. It is to prevent the coercion and exploitation of our citizens. And so what happens with this is that even an adult who wants some help with, their feelings of being gay, maybe it's for religious reasons or whatever, they may not seek that help. That kind of therapy is banned outright. And also, this is one directional. So you may counsel somebody to be gay, but not to be heterosexual. Second criterion says change a person's gender identity to cis. cisgender. So gender identity is the gender that you think you are, and cisgender means a person who thinks they are the gender that they were born into. So I think I'm a man, and that happens to be the gender that I am born into. So I am cisgender. And I want everybody to put a pin in this term here, cisgender, because I'm going to get into where that comes from in a little while. Next criterion down here says, change a person's gender expression so that it conforms to the sex assigned to the person at birth. So sex is not assigned, it's observed. And they're talking about changing their gender expression, which is a fashion choice. So if you have a cross-dressing child, you may not counsel them to not be a cross-dressing child, but you may counsel a child to be a cross-dressing child. So one direction only, clear bias in this legislation. Next criterion down says repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. So you may not provide a therapy that reduces non-heterosexual attraction, but you can reduce heterosexual attraction. Again, you're allowed to counsel them to be gay, but not to be gay, to not be gay. But and this is illegal for adults as well. So here's another one: repress a person's non-cisgender identity. So a non-cisgender identity would be, for example, a trans identity. So if you have a trans identified child, a gender-confused child, you may not repress their gender confusion and convince them to feel comfortable in their own bodies. But you may convince them to be trans, one directional again. And the last one here says repress or reduce a person's gender expression that does not conform to the sex assigned to the person at birth. That's basically a restatement of the third one. But again, gender expression is your fashion choice, and sex is not assigned at birth. It is observed. Now, here is the part where we talk about punishment. Everyone who knowingly causes another person to undergo conversion therapy, including by providing conversion therapy to that other person, is guilty of an offense and liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 5 years, or guilty of offense punishable on summary conviction. So the problem, of course, comes in with the definition of conversion therapy, because conversion therapy by the legislation is it captures convincing or helping a gender confused child to feel comfortable in their natural body. So if you do that, you are liable to imprisonment of up to 5 years. Okay, so this term cisgender, where does this come from? Well, here's the Wikipedia page for Volkmar Segush, and he was a German sexologist, physician, and sociologist. From 1973 to 2006, he was the director for the Institute for Sexual Wissenschaft, German stuff that means Institute for Sexual Science, at the Clinic of Goethe University in Frankfurt. And for those of you who are familiar with the infamous Frankfurt School, you know where I'm going with this already. It says down here that in a 1991 publication, Die Transsexualism in German, stuff that means transsexual and our nosomorphic view, Segush coined the term cissexual as an antonym to transsexual. Cissexual refers to a person whose gender identity matches their sex. So my gender identity, I think I'm a man, and it matches the fact that I am a man. This part here is where it gets interesting. He studied medicine, psychology, and philosophy in Frankfurt. And his philosophical studies in particular were done under Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno. So who are these guys? Well, here is Max Horkheimer. He was a German philosopher and sociologist, best known for his role in developing critical theory as director of the Institute for Social Research, commonly associated with the Frankfurt School, the infamous Frankfurt School. And what is critical theory? Well, critical theory is a social, historical, and political school of thought and philosophical perspective which centers on analyzing and challenging systemic power relations in society, arguing that knowledge, truth, and social structures are fundamentally shaped by power dynamics between dominant and oppressed groups. Sound familiar? And they're basically saying that knowledge and truth are functions of dominance, not that they are objective realities in the first place. But carrying on, it says, beyond just understanding and critiquing these dynamics, it explicitly aims to transform society through praxis, which I'm not going to get into right now, and collective action with an explicit sociological purpose. So it's not just a field of study. It has an explicit sociological purpose. It is politicized. So, what is the deal here with the critical theory? Well, let me just show you. Here we see that the branch under which it falls, one of the many branches, is Marxist. It is a Marxist school of thought. And who was Karl Marx? Of course, he was the author of the Communist Manifesto. So this is a communist theory. What we're talking about when we're talking about cissexual is a Marxist view on sexuality, and the gender comes in with this odious beast, Judith Butler. And who is she? Well, she's an American feminist and queer philosopher and gender studies scholar who worked whose work has influenced political philosophy, ethics, psychoanalysis, and the fields of feminist and queer theory, academic freedom, and literary theory. All sounds well and good. And you scroll down here and it says, what is her school or tradition? Well, it's critical theory. She is a Marxist, a neo-Marxist. And here we have overview of major works, Performative Acts and Gender Constitution. In the essay Performative Acts and Gender Constitution, an essay in phenomenology and feminist theory, Judith Butler proposes that gender is performative. Gender is not so much a static identity or role, but rather comprises a set of acts which can evolve over time. Butler states that because gender identity is established through behavior, there is a possibility to construct different genders via different behaviors. Gender is a social construction. She is the one who advanced this concept initially, and she is Marxist in the critical school theory of thought. Or the critical theory school of thought. Okay, this is an email from me, Jeff Evely, dated September 18th, 2019, and I sent this to Goldie Gamari and Pierre Poilievre, my MPP and MP, respectively, while I was at my last posting in the military in Ottawa with NDHQ. And the email says, "Good day. I have been a resident of Stetsville for the last 5 years. I'm a single father of 2 remarkable young adults. My son is 22 and he is in his 4th year at Carleton University. My daughter is 16 and she is in grade 11 at South Carleton High School. I am currently serving 18-year veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces with operational tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. My mother recently came to stay at my house to keep an eye on things while I was deployed to Iraq. While I was away, my daughter received a phone call from CHEO, that's the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. They scheduled an appointment for her to be seen at the Adolescent Metabolics Clinic by Dr. Stephen Fetter in April of 2019. I scheduled my leave from deployment so that I could attend this appointment. At this appointment, Dr. Fetter recommended that my daughter be put on puberty blockers in preparation for gender transition. I asked him to explain how he had determined that my child to be transgender. He said that she had claimed to be transgender, and that was sufficient evidence for his diagnosis. His position was that gender dysphoria was analogous to homosexuality. My position was that gender dysphoria was not at all like homosexuality for several reasons. First, the claim of being homosexual requires no supporting evidence because it is ultimately about personal preference, which requires no explanation. Furthermore, there is no potential harm associated with being gay. Finally, and most importantly, we do not intervene medically with homosexuality. The claim of being a boy living in a girl's body, on the other hand, is a somewhat extraordinary claim that requires somewhat extraordinary evidence if it is to be believed, and it carries with it a great potential for harm in the form of unnecessary, life-changing medical intervention. I asserted that, in the interest of mitigating risk, the default approach should be non-interventionist, as it is with homosexuality. We discussed the merits of our disparate positions, but came to no agreement. I needed to see evidence of my child's condition if I was going to support the medical intervention. Dr. Fetter was unable to provide any evidence whatsoever beyond my child's initial claim. He is now proceeding with the medical intervention without my support. Now, this went around and around Goldie Gamari's office back to the provincial authority, and the provincial authority came back and said, yes, of course, that's what Dr. Fetter is supposed to be doing. That didn't go anywhere, but I persisted over the course of well over a year until I finally got this from Pierre Poilievre on January 31st, 2021. He said, "Dear Master Warrant Officer Evely, thank you again for saying hello the other week and for sharing your thoughts with me over the phone on Friday, January 22nd. So I'm going to fill out what he's talking about a little bit there. But the point here is that He and I had a conversation on the 22nd of January, 2021. It was a half an hour long. I told him all about the puberty blockers, which are just chemical castration drugs that we give to children in order to sabotage their natural development. I told him all about cross-sex hormones for adolescents, double mastectomies for 14-year-olds, phalloplasties and vaginoplasties for 18-year-olds. It leaves these people butchered and sterilized for life. And I told him all about that on the 22nd of January, 2021. Okay, here is Bill C8, bit of a historical lesson here, because this conversion therapy bill was first introduced as Bill C8. It eventually died on when they went on break during the 43rd Parliament first session. And here is the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Title of the article is Unconscionable and Unconstitutional. Bill C8's attempt to dictate choices concerning sexuality and gender. This is dated May 12th, 2020. And the text of the article says, under the guise of prohibiting conversion therapy, the federal government's Bill C8, an act to amend the criminal code, conversion therapy, Bill C8, proposes to use the blunt instrument of the criminal code to take away personal choice and essentially impose gender transition as the only acceptable treatment for children experiencing gender identity distress. Bill C8 creates new criminal offenses that are not narrowly targeted to address the specific demonstrated harms typically associated with conversion therapy. The typical harms that don't pray the gay away, this kind of thing. And I don't even know how that really happens. Do we have examples of that? Because when I was showing you those different criteria that you can go to jail for under Bill C4, there were 6 different criteria. Only 2 of them related to being gay or sexual preference, and the other 4 related to gender ideology. So it does seem to target the sexually confused children, systematically so in the current school system. So yeah, that is it's sick. Okay, so here is getting back to this email chain. Like I said, there was quite a bit of runaround between my initial email in September of 2019 and eventually getting a hold of Pierre Poilievre in January of 2021. So on the 4th of December 2020, which is just a few months after this article came out in May of 2020, I sent a follow-up email here to Pierre Poilievre Assistant 3, and I said, I want to speak out against Bill C8 ASAP. And then I followed up the next day and I said, I want to read a prepared statement on Bill C8 in front of the Senate or anywhere. Okay, carrying on. Here is Bill C6. This is the next time that the conversion therapy bill came back as Bill C6 under the 43rd Parliament second session. So after the first session ended, they came back with Bill C6 in the second session, and the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms was all over this again. Article title is Justice Center testifying today before Parliamentary Committee studying conversion therapy bill. And it's a bit of a lengthy article, so little part here. They say the Justice Center explains that the bill violates the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in 4 significant ways. 1, the bill opposes one narrow ideological view of sexuality and gender, which violates the fundamental charter freedom of Canadians to have their own thoughts, beliefs, and opinions concerning sexuality and gender. Like I said, it opposes a Marxist view on gender on the rest of us, even though I am anything but a Marxist. And here, number 2, it says Bill C6 discriminates against LGBTQ persons by denying their equal rights to receive the support or therapy of their own choosing concerning their sexuality, gender identity, sexual addictions, and sexual behavior. And some people do want help with these kinds of things. Sex addicts, maybe people are concerned about their sexuality for religious reasons, and even if you're an adult, that kind of therapy is not available to you. I think you should be free to pursue that kind of therapy as a consenting adult. I don't think we should be coercing anybody into any kinds of choices, be they sexual or otherwise. This third one says Bill C6 removes the ability of health professionals and parents to determine treatments in the best interest of children who are experiencing gender distress, and instead imposes a one-size-fits-all treatment of psychological, hormonal, and potentially surgical gender transition. Bill C6 interferes severely with the teaching and practice of religious beliefs regarding sexuality and gender identity and prevents religious LGBTQ persons from receiving support in accordance with their own religious faith. This violates the charter freedom of religion and conscience, especially for LGBTQ Canadians, as well as LGBTQ equality rights. So just as I just said. And my favorite quote here from the bottom says, With Bill C6, the federal government is telling us that the only possible path for children who say they are transgender is the most extreme one, and anyone who provides an alternative approach could be charged with a criminal offense and face jail time. 5 years in jail for helping your systematically gender confused child to feel comfortable in their own body. Here, back to my email, January 18th, 2021. So this article from the Justice Center came out in December of 2020. 1 month later, I was following up with Pierre's office, and I said, good day. I saw Mr. Polyev in public yesterday, so I took the opportunity to raise this issue with him as it relates to Bill C6. He asked for my name, blah, blah, blah. And the assistant got back to me and said, hi, Jeff, I will forward your email to Pierre's scheduling assistant. So I actually ran into him at a gas station in our riding where we both lived. And I approached him and I said, look, I've been trying to get a hold of you about this forever, man. Like, what is the deal with this conversion therapy stuff? And I have a nightmare scenario to describe for you with everything that I've just been through with the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, stalking and grooming my daughter for biomedical transition to male while I was deployed to Iraq, my 16-year-old daughter, no less. Anyway, he told me to follow up with them, and I told them, and they scheduled something between us. Okay, and here is Bill C6 again. And why am I harping on this? Because Bill C6 was a free vote. Bill C4 notoriously was whipped by Aaron O'Toole, so it was a unanimous vote. But Bill C6 was not whipped, so it was a free vote and not unanimous. And here you can see all the conservatives here voting yay, 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 yay. Okay, and we have a nay. Dean Allison voted nay. Moving down here, we have nay. Michael Barrett voted nay. Bob Benson voted nay. Kansas Spurgeon voted nay. And if we keep going all the way down here, we will eventually find the pandering one, Pierre Polyev. Where the heck is he? So here's Pierre Polyev, free vote, and he voted yay. He is in favor of this bill. He could have voted nay on this one, and he voted yay. And here is Bill C4 again, and as you can see, it was royally assented on December 8th, 2021. Here is the vote.
Mr. Speaker, I'm asking for unanimous consent to adopt the following motion, that notwithstanding any standing order or usual practices of the House, Bill C4, an act to amend the Criminal Code, conversion therapy, be deemed to have been read a second time and referred to a committee of the whole, deemed considered in committee of the whole, deemed reported without amendment, deemed concurred in at the report stage, and deemed read a third time and passed.
This being a hybrid sitting of the House, for the sake of clarity, I will only ask those who are opposed to the request to express their disagreement. Accordingly, all those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. There being no dissenting voice, I declare the motion carried.
Third reading of the bill. Welcome to Mr. Pandering One.
See how happy they are? Big hugs for Michelle Rempel. Everybody's hugging Michelle Rempel. And she does her famous dance. Aren't they happy? Isn't it great that they're imposing 5-year jail sentences on parents who try to protect their kids? Michelle Rempel's really happy about that. And here I caught up with Pierre Poilievre at a Truro campaign event in June of 2023 after this passed. And I waited in line to do the grip and grin with him. And I had my camera with me so I could put him on the spot and confront him. And when I got to the front of the line, here's what happened. So his aides could not keep their hands to themselves. So they grabbed my camera and hit the record button. So they stopped the recording before I had a chance to put him on the spot, which I did do. And I even went back a second time looking completely different, changed my outfit. And that time I went with audio recording only because what they were doing is they were saying, I insist, I'm going to take the picture for you, trying to take my camera. And then so I gave them my camera this time. And when he went to take the picture, he hit the volume button, so it muted the audio, and I didn't even get the recording of me putting him on the spot that time. Pretty smooth operators, and look what they are doing, what they are trying to protect here. Okay, and here's an article from Globalist News. This is September 20th, 2023. It says, Poilievre's office asks the Tory MPs to not talk to media on gender ideology protests. What protests were going on the 20th of September 2023? Well, it was the 1 Million March for Children. And here I am leading the Toronto March, the biggest one. Here he is finally being confronted by the press on 7 February 2024. That's a dodge. It's your own party policy. Does he talk about his own party policy? Your own party member suggested. So he's not going to talk about his own party member and what they suggested. He says medical interventions like what? You see how he's pretending that he doesn't know anything about puberty blockers? I personally told him all about puberty blockers on the 22nd of January, 2021. He's lying. Because we give puberty blockers to adults, right? No, he's not. That is a lie. And you can tell he's lying. This is his tell. It's this face that he makes where he's kind of looking down at the ground and stuff. This is just my word, so take it for what it's worth. But this is the exact same face he made at me when I confronted him in Truro in June of 2023. Dodge. Yeah, and how's that going? So it's not to visit. You voted unanimously for it, and there is no backing down on it because it's already law, and you personally voted for it. it's not. Okay, and True North gets credit for that clip. So, yeah, this guy is an absolute snake, swamp creature if there ever was one. As you can see, he just pulls out his little slippery tool bag there, and it's dive, dodge, duck, dive, and dodge, whatever dodgeball is. Okay, so that is the result. One more time, very divided party. 51.85 are for opposing putting parents in jail for trying to protect their children, and 48.51% are not going to oppose it. They are in favor of jailing parents for trying to protect their children from the trans-industrial complex. Okay, that's it for me, everybody. I know it's a bit long-winded, but I hope that this is informative for a lot of folks out there who are perhaps just waking up to what is really going on in Canada right now. So we got a lot of work to do, and you know, if you're not doing everything you can to protect the vulnerable in Canada right now, then I don't know what to tell you. Okay, guys, that's it for me. Have yourselves a good day.